Welcome to Reelfoot Forward, a West Tennessee podcast from Discovery Park of America. Today's episode is brought to you by Main Street, Union City.
Thank you, Zach, and welcome everybody to Reelfoot Forward, a West Tennessee podcast where we explore the history, the people, and the culture of our home in West Tennessee. I'm your host, Scott Williams. Okay, Zach, before I introduce today's incredibly special guest, what is something you discovered this week at Discovery Park of America?
Scott, today I discovered some nostalgia for me that I don't feel like should be nostalgia yet, but we have a compact disc recordable CD in our technology showcase, something I used to use in my high school days and college days to burn CDs for my friends, and now it's on display at Discovery Park America. And you don't get your music that way anymore either.
Absolutely, and that is an area that we really honestly is moving closer to the top of our list of having to be sort of rethought because, things have changed, that pretty much the artifacts there were from, 11, 12 years ago. And think about the change in the last decade. So
absolutely.
Jennifer and I are meeting in the coming weeks with some other folks who are interested in that. And so we're going to revamp it slightly. There's a lot of opportunity for that. And a lot of the progression in music and ways people find out about music has been impacted by today's guest, Stephanie Riley, the president, the founder of B3 Creative Agency, among a ton of other things. So we're going to talk about a lot, but welcome, Stephanie.
Hi, happy to be here.
So let's go all the way back, Stephanie. We're gonna end up talking about music and all the things that you're doing in communication, which the list is long. But first of all, let's go all the way back to little Stephanie. Tell us about where you grew up.
Well, I'm from Union City, home of Discovery Park, as everyone knows, and really proud to be from there. My father's from there, my mother's from Dyersburg, and I come from a lot of entrepreneurs. My parents were entrepreneurs, had a business in Union City for many decades, and then both of my grandparents were entrepreneurs.
What were their businesses?
So my parents had Reelfoot Clinic in Union City for several years until my father passed away. And then my grandmother, my dad's mom, had a fish store in Union City, a tropical fish store, if you can believe it. And my grandparents in Dyersburg started a Williams jewelry store, which may still be in operation, just with different owners. So.
And what did you say your parents' store was?
Or my parents had Reelfoot Clinic. So my dad was a podiatrist. So
okay, that's so interesting. Yeah. All of those businesses are completely different. So they were entrepreneurial. I got to think. So your grandparents started a tropical fish store. Were tropical fish like a thing? You think I'm guessing, was this like the 40s or the 50s or
No, it's funny. So my grandmother, she became a widow like kind of early in life, and she wanted to have money to travel and buy clothes and all the things. So she started a fish store that she did during the week, and yeah, it was when I was alive. So probably early 80s is when she started that and had that for a little while.
Where was it located?
Oh, you would ask me that. I cannot remember the street.
I'm really sure people here will remember.
Yeah.
You can't forget a tropical fish store. Right. Did she alive still, or she passed away?
She's passed away since then. So, but yeah, she had it until right before she passed away. So,
do you know what, of all the businesses in the world, she could have, a bakery, a real estate business, what drew her to the tropical fish business?
There wasn't a store already there, and she liked fish and thought it would be something fun to do. And so I have a lot of memories sitting there. My mom might have had to run an errand, so I have a lot of memories of just sitting there at the store, feeding the fish, talking to her. So, I think she just enjoyed it, but it did create a lot of great opportunities for me to spend time with her, just hanging out at the fish store in Union City. So
when you go into like a Petco, do memories just come flooding back to the smell?
They do.
Smells sometimes like grandma.
Yes, and at our agency here, we actually have fish. It's an old vintage TV that my friend Lakin fixed up, and it's got a fish tank in it. And so that probably gets the most comments. When people come to the office, they always talk about the fish tank. So I've tried to, keep that going a little bit myself. So
Oh, that's amazing. So which of the Union City high schools did you go to?
I went to Union City High School. So,
Okay, very
yeah,
cool. And then so you're a young daughter of entrepreneurs in a rural community.
that's right.
Did you have any idea what you wanted to do when you eventually grew up?
I did. My parents tell me that I would wake them up at 6 in the morning to draw and get all my art supplies out. I've always loved art and I've always loved being creative. And so when I got a little older, I was in high school at Union City, and the art teacher had this box sitting on the floor, and it said Adobe Photoshop, probably 3.0 or something really archaic. And I said, "Well, what's that?" He said, "Oh, I don't know. Somebody sent it to us." He said, "It's just sitting there." I said, "Well, can I take it home?" And this was in like 1997, 98. So home computers are still very new. And my parents had one. And so I brought it home, installed this software, and started using Adobe Photoshop. Not well at all at the time, of course. But so at that point, I realized, well, wait a second. So I really like technology. I like computers, like this software. I love art. And at the time, graphic design was very new, but it just popped up at UT Martin. And I knew that that's what I wanted to do in high school because it was combining two things that I really cared about and loved. And so, yeah, that's how I got into what I'm doing. I started with graphic design, went to UT Martin, and got a fine arts degree in that. So, yeah, that's my path. So I guess I was one of those lucky few that knew pretty early on that I wanted to be creative and was able to find a path early.
Now, for folks who are listening who maybe aren't plugged into the art software world,
Yes.
Adobe products are what we honestly started off with right out of the chute.
Hmm.
Early on, Photoshop, Illustrator. There was a program called Quark
Oh,
Express
yeah.
that we used, but that was a transition from right before that. We were literally using rub-on letterpress. You
That's
would
right.
buy a font in plastic sheets with all the letters on it, like 10 A's, 14B. Somehow they knew statistically what you needed to, and we would literally sit there and rub headlines on. Zach, did you rub headlines on ever? Or are you way too young for that?
I never did that one. But
The other thing that we would do that I got intense pleasure out of was cutting amberlith. Did you ever have to cut amberlith, Stephanie? You're
I
you're
did
you're
not.
a lot younger than me too, but so that was like if you wanted to do a color overlay for the printer, you would have
Right.
to use an X-Acto knife and an orange
Mhm.
stuff, and you would cut out what you wanted, and then pulling it off was sort of like pulling sunburned skin off of a plastic sheet. And there was some kind of pleasure that I derived from that. But I remember a couple of job interviews at ad agencies that I would go in, and I actually had somehow, I guess I thought I was a great amberlith cutter. So in my
Right.
portfolio were examples of the amberlith that I had cut, which was not very impressive because I didn't get very many of those jobs. But it was a fun era to me to look back because it was a huge
Mhm.
transitionary era
Right.
for all of us who loved technology and design. So, do you remember what stands out about your years learning graphic design at UT Martin?
Well, I think 1999 may have been the first class. So the professor, he was a painter and he taught painting. And at the time they said, oh, well, it's pretty similar, just teach graphic design. And I kept up, his name was Lane Last, and I kept up with him until he passed away this last year. So we kind of learned a little bit together. He did a great job, but I've always just that entrepreneurial spirit. I've always just wanted to figure things out on my own and do a lot on my own. So we did start with Cork and some of those programs that you mentioned, but I think what stands out is just seeing a program start, at a college and seeing what it is today and seeing how it's grown. And that's been really cool to see. Just being a part of something new was pretty fun. So,
And Lane was such a good guy. He would have me come speak to his
mhm.
class every year. I really miss him.
Oh
A lot of
no.
passion.
Yes.
Really, really smart and creative guy.
Yes, he's the best. We actually have one of his paintings in our office here in Jackson. And yeah, I loved keeping up with Lane through the years and we became friends over time. And yeah, you're right. His passion and how much he cared about the students. And one thing as I got older, I realized about Lane is he was very patient. I'm an adjunct professor now. And, I've kind of seen the other side of that and just the patience that he had with us. It really made a difference. We didn't realize it at the time, but yeah, he was fantastic. I miss
So
him a lot.
what was your major ultimately?
It's a fine arts degree with an emphasis in graphic design. So,
Okay, so you went like the full art, full art direction.
Sure did.
You get at, did you work while you were going to UT Martin?
Oh, of course. Yes. I started working in the computer center. I had a freelance business at some point. I had a few businesses in college, but yeah, I always had two or three jobs at one time. So
Did you work at the fish store at all?
no, I didn't do that in college, but I worked at my dad's clinic in the summers sometimes, but that was about it with the family.
Oh, that's awesome. So, you graduate, you're trying to decide what direction to head.
Mhm.
Did you think about New York or do I travel far away or, what was your thought process there?
You know, I did think about that a little bit, but I've always just loved Tennessee. And I lived in Pennsylvania for a couple of months, if you want to count that, with a summer gig that I had. But I've really just loved being in Tennessee, and I've loved being, in this part of Tennessee, growing up in Union City and then now being in Jackson. So no, I didn't really set my sights on the big city, and maybe I would have gotten some different experiences had I done that. But yeah, I've always just liked the people here and the connections that I made, and it's kept me here. So,
So, what was your first out of college gig?
well, I worked at UT Martin for about a year with a grant, and then actually Pick Suite out of Bell. They're headquartered in Bells, Tennessee. They called Lane, oddly enough, and said, "Hey, we need somebody to do graphic design here." And so Lane said, "Well, she's been out of college for a little bit, but you should try calling Stephanie." And so that was my first job, was working at Pick Suite at their corporate headquarters, and that was a fantastic job. I mean, I'm in my early 20s, and getting so many of those experiences that I wouldn't have gotten, doing what I do now was really invaluable. At one point, I got to fly on their jet with the VP somewhere. And when you are 23 years old, you think that is about the coolest thing you've ever done in your life. But it was a fantastic company with a really good culture. It taught me a lot, and it really couldn't have been a better experience for me at my age. But of course, I'm doing freelance the whole time. I'm thinking about, what I'm going to do next. So I certainly didn't leave for any negative reason. I just left because I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So
And so you end up landing in Jackson.
I do.
What was appealing about this the city of Jackson?
Well, being in Bells, you're really close to Jackson. That's going to be where you go to eat, shop, make friends, go to church. And so I really developed a lot of relationships in Jackson, and I was there pretty much every night. So it was a pretty easy transition. Just really built a cool community, or there's a really cool community here that I got to meet and become a part of. So it was easy to just move on over.
Well, it's sometimes hard for creative folks. We are very blessed here at Discovery Park that we
Mhm.
have a lot of the UT Martin creatives that end up working here in one capacity or another. And so, I do know they're always looking for their tribe at that age, especially. You're looking for your people, and
Right.
so you found a really cool community in Jackson. Um, Tell us a little bit about your thought process for some of those young people may be listening. Your thought process: you've arrived in town, you're
Mhm.
creative, you got a little bit of experience under your belt, and at some point you decide you're going to start your own advertising agency. So how did that all come about?
Yeah. So as most entrepreneurs have probably told you on this show, you got to be a little bit of a risk taker. And so I actually had a job. Well, I was freelancing with Savant in Martin, and they gave me a contract that was just enough to justify quitting my job and starting a company. And I said, well, I'll figure out the rest. I think that's the attitude I've always had. I'll figure it out. And so I took that amount of work and immediately joined the chamber, immediately began going to every networking opportunity I could, and built the business. But it was really just getting that one project that was just enough to give me that confidence to go, okay, well, I can pay a few bills with this, and I can figure out the rest. So
And how long ago was this? What years when you first
let's
started?
see, this would have been 2008,
Okay.
2009. So
Okay.
it's been
So
a
that
little
gives
bit.
me a good idea of the time frame. Um, okay, so you've got a little bit of business. How does a person who's opening an advertising agency, how do you go about finding more business?
Yeah, well, so I've had two agencies now. And so the first agency, it was really the chamber that provided all the opportunities, the Greater Jackson Chamber. So like I said, I went to everything. And I think that's one thing people need to realize about chambers, they provide the opportunities, you have to take advantage of them. And so I did take advantage of those opportunities, whether it was business after hours, it was a breakfast, and I just started meeting people. And at first they don't know you, they're not ready to trust you, but the more you go to stuff, the more you build those relationships. And then you get a call and you get an email, and it just really took off from there. So I would say just that was probably one of the biggest keys to success, was just going to everything and being everywhere to build that network in the business world.
Now, for a lot of these, in most rural communities,
Hmm.
there is business and industry, but oftentimes it's not the headquarters of an organization that has a
Right.
$50 million advertising budget. So I'm curious, what kind of gigs were you getting, or what kind of help were you providing for some of these businesses?
So my first company, it was really design and print focused. And we did work a lot with small businesses. That was our primary client base, was small business. And that was good. It was a really good season. I learned a lot. You have to have a lot more clients when you have small business clients, just because their budgets are different than a larger client. So that was, I understand what you're saying. You aren't going to knock on Kellogg's door and get a gig the next day, especially being young and being new. So yeah, we had a lot of support from our local small businesses, whether it was clinics or just other service companies. It was primarily service companies that we dealt with. And then we also had printing. That was something that I added, and I'll tell you how I added it. I went to a local printer that I don't think is in business anymore. I said, "Hey, I've started this agency. I like to have a printer to partner with that I can send files to and just be somebody I can count on." They said, "Well, we need to see your files before we give you a quote because I need to know that you know what you're doing." And I said, "You know what? I'm just going to do it myself." So I ended up buying a giant printer, electronic cutter, and ended up doing the printing for a lot of our clients, which gave us more revenue and also allowed me to have control of deadlines and products and quality and things like that. So,
Who were your first employees that you hired, and what skill sets? I'm curious where I would probably have to go to the accounting person first and hire somebody to do my
well,
books.
I did that right the second time. The second agency, I did hire someone else with the books early on. But the first hire was a graphic designer because we did so much design. I hired a guy that I'd known for a little while, and he was at Union and finishing up, and he worked there until we sold the agency. So yeah, graphic design was first. And then I think it was, I think it was two graphic designers because I did all the client relationship work at that point. So
So
yeah.
you're out and about running around, and and you're billing, and other people are doing what I would think is the fun stuff. And so you at some point sold your agency. What led to that?
So we were in business maybe about 4 years, and I was approached by a larger firm in town, and they needed more bandwidth in design. And we had worked together for printing. I printed several projects for them and had a good relationship, and I respected them a lot. And just started having the conversation. And I think in 2 or 3 months, they acquired my business and they brought over my employees. Anybody that wanted to come was able to come. And so I did that I was a partner there for about 3.5, 4 years, something like that. And maybe it wasn't quite that long, but I realized kind of early on, when I did that, I thought, oh, well, I just love talking to people and creating things. I'll love it there. I don't have to worry about all these things. But I realized pretty early on that I actually missed developing the culture. I missed that feeling of being the one to provide jobs, and I missed everything. And so I knew pretty early on I'd probably get back to doing this on my own again. And so that's when I started the second firm, which is about 7 years old now.
So you're getting to know the business through all of these experience that you're having. When you started your second business, I'm curious, what did you do different from when you started your first business?
Yeah, so I learned a lot, obviously, through my different experiences, my agency working with a different firm. And so the approach was more to have fewer clients and larger clients, and mostly because you get to dive deeper into the work, you get to explore more, you get to, I mean, and being in this world, Scott, it's really tough when you have a small amount of time to do excellent work. And so, and the other thing that is the most important is the culture and the people. And it was always important to me, but I was a lot more intentional about it this time, just had more years of experience and knew the value. And so that has stayed absolutely number one, finding the right people. We may all have to work super hard to stay caught up while we wait for the right person, but it's always worth the wait every single time. And that has paid off. Like time after time, having the right people here and caring about the people that are here. And the culture has been like, it's, it's been absolutely fantastic since that's been such a priority.
And so, what are the aspects of the culture that you most champion?
What I love and admire most about this team is they care about the work because they know it reflects themselves, it reflects the company, and it reflects their coworkers, and they all care about that. And anybody that doesn't, honestly, just kind of they just don't last long because it's one of those things I don't even have to carry anymore. They expect it out of one another. You know, they challenge one another, and sometimes they'll have competition to see like who can do the best job. It's very healthy and it's good, and so being able to see that grow and know that it doesn't have to be me instilling the culture all the time. They've taken it and moved it forward themselves. That's been really excellent to see. But just the care about the work, because when people care about it, they want to push themselves to do a really good job. Your clients win. And so, and the work is better and everybody benefits. So that's what I'm most proud of.
So, leaning into, even though Jackson's, to me, not rural, but leaning into more of the small town,
Hmm.
slightly rural uh, communities, what do you like best about working someplace that's not Atlanta or New York or
Yeah.
even honestly Nashville or, Memphis?
Right, absolutely. And I guess you can tell I'm a people person. It goes back to the people again. You know, even in Jackson, which is bigger than where I grew up, of course, you still see people you know all the time, and you're able to build those relationships and you're able to feel like you can make a small impact in your community. It's a little harder for somebody like me to make an impact in a city like Nashville for sure, but you can do work where you can see a direct result, or you can contribute things and see the result of it a little easier. In a smaller town, you can see, you can just meet people, know people, and that's something that you can't really get in a New York City. It's just a different feeling
I mean,
for
we have
sure.
more and more people, since remote work has become, an
Mhm.
option, more and more
Right?
people are moving here to Union City, and other people in Northwest Tennessee are saying the same
Yeah,
thing. We're seeing more people moving from California, moving from New York even, and settling here because of just the cost of living and,
that's right.
the lack of traffic. We just had an event here. A lot of out of town friends came in town, and everyone remarked on the lack of traffic.
Oh, yeah.
If you haven't lived where there's a lot of traffic, you don't quite realize just how nice it is.
It's so nice. It's funny you mentioned that. We had a young lady that worked for us a few years ago, and she moved here from Nashville, and she worked in downtown Nashville. And she said, if I don't leave my house at 5 and get there really early, I'm sitting in traffic for an hour and a half. And I thought, goodness, well, welcome to Jackson.
Yes, no, absolutely. That's the way it was for me when I lived in DC. It would be like,
Yeah.
if I didn't leave, and I like just like she said, I would leave at 5 a.m. so I could beat a lot of the traffic. It was about to get from my house to where I worked was about 15 minutes at
Hmm.
5 o'clock in the morning.
Hmm.
But if I waited until 7:30 to leave, it would be an hour,
Yeah.
to get there. So, but now Zach, he lives in Murray now, and so how long is the drive for you from Murray?
I'm actually in Mayfield, but it's
Oh, I'm sorry, I got the
30
word.
35
I
minutes.
knew it was an M word.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not
Um,
bad.
it takes you about thirty
Yeah,
minutes. Do you use that time to listen to podcasts and music and chill?
I do because I used to not get that when I was 5 to 10 minutes away from the office.
Right. No, that's when I would call my parents and talk to my parents in that hour and my friends. And so I had this whole
Yeah.
list and I was up on all the podcasts and, so but now I'm so close that I don't get to do that, but that's okay. I'll give that up. So living in a small town like Zach and our
Mhm.
small town's about, let's see, Union City's 10,000, Obion County's 30,000. But we're in Union City much of the time. Jackson's a little bit bigger. How big is it?
It's about 68,000, give or
So
take.
you're edging up closer to 70,000, which means you have a little bit more retail, a little bit more food and beverage.
Yeah.
Of course, you have Thai, which is
Oh,
my
yes.
personal favorite. And whenever I
Definitely.
go for a meeting or whatever in Jackson, I always pick up food on the way home, except they're closed like on Monday and Tuesday or something like
They
that. So
are. What's your
that's a
favorite thing
bummer.
to get there?
You know what, I'm such a, I always just get pad thai. That's what, I'm always looking for tofu pad thai is what I like.
Yeah,
But I'll try anything. I like everything, but
yeah.
I can always depend on that. And when you're that far away, you don't want to be
Right.
risky.
That's right. It's so good. Yeah, I know that family. It's such a great family. I'm going to be super sad when she retires one day, which is not going to
Oh,
be
no,
that long, so keep enjoying it.
is she passing the knowledge down to her children or?
I think only time will tell. I'm not too sure yet, but
Oh,
it's
I hope
it's so
so.
good. She does such a nice job.
Yeah, it's really delicious. Well, then of course, I can't talk about food without talking about the Old Country Store.
Yes,
Brooks is doing an amazing job there.
he is.
And it's decades and decades and decades
Mhm.
old. When I was a little kid, my grandmother would take me to the Old Country Store.
Oh yeah.
And so Brooks and I have the same great great grandparent in our lineage,
Oh
far
wow.
down. And in Brownsville is where they were. And one time my grandmother said, when we were waiting to get in, she goes, "Our people somehow own this, but I don't know how." So, now that I do genealogy, I could tell her if
Yeah.
she was around, how our
Wow.
people own it. But yeah, he's doing such a great job over there with the entertainment
Mm.
and the restaurant and all that. And so I do want to
Yes.
talk about Jackson's entertainment world. But
Yes.
first, we're going to take a quick break. And then when we get back, we're going to talk about that.
All right.
Looking for something fun to do while in Union City? Our downtown district has a variety of chic boutiques, tasty bites, and more for the whole family to enjoy. You can find hours of operations for all the places to eat, shop, and play at mainstreetunioncity.com/things to do.
I hope you're enjoying the Reelfoot Forward podcast from Discovery Park of America. If you are, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a positive review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Our guest today is Stephanie Riley, who's doing all kinds of cool things from advertising to communications. And now we're going to talk about music. And she was instrumental in a tool that people can use to find out more about music. Tell us about that. But first, tell us about the music scene in Jackson. It's between Memphis and Nashville. So all the artists that go back and forth, are exposed to Jackson. Some of them stop, and some of them started there and went one direction or the other. So Jackson has a deep music history. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, most people will think about Carl Perkins. When you think about Jackson music, you say, who comes to mind first? A lot of people will name Carl, which obviously he was very successful and has done so much for our community here. For those of you that don't know, he wrote Blue Suede Shoes. But now today's music scene, it is just filled with all kinds of great talent, and it's not just one genre. That's what's so cool. We've got, Christian hip hop artists. We've got country, of course, rock, alternative music. There's just so much going on here, different ages. We have live music in our area 7 days a week, which is really special. And yeah, it's just fantastic. You can go to a restaurant, you can go to a bar and see somebody perform most any night. So,
So you saw a hole in the fact that people had a hard time
mhm.
finding out where this live music was actually taking place.
Yes, so this is one of my favorite things to talk about. So, when COVID hit, a lot of the tourism offices were given grants to elevate certain aspects in their community, and we worked with Visit Jackson, Tennessee to elevate the music scene. And so the director said, "Well, what do you think we should do?" And I started thinking about it, and this is something that I believe a lot of communities deal with is you hear fill in the blank city music scene, Nashville music scene, Memphis music scene, Union City music scene. What does that mean? And where do you actually go to find out information? Where do you go to find out who's playing, who performs there, what's going on? And I realized like there's not an identity developed. And so I thought, well, let's just see what happens. What if we actually give the music scene an identity, a name that people can go find and they can get the information that they want? And it's special to the community. It's that insider name, it's that unique to Jackson thing. And so when we were thinking about the name, instead of Jackson Music Scene, which is kind of boring, we thought, well, what's Jackson all about? And so you think about the sounds that formed the initial sound of music, or those things that formed that. You've got the actual train tracks that came in, brought like the country and the gospel and those sounds that Carl Perkins leveraged. And then you also think about actual music tracks, and then it goes back to all this hidden talent we've got here. And as you mentioned, Scott, many of them move on to Nashville or other places, and so after a lot of time, we developed the name Jackson Hidden Tracks. And most people just call it Hidden Tracks. So Hidden Tracks it's got its own logo, it's got its own website, and we've gotten the artist on board with it. Anytime you introduce something that's for musicians are going to go, well, wait a minute, what is this all about? Is this really to benefit me? Can I trust this? And so we were able to over time get their buy-in. And what Hidden Tracks is it's a central location for anyone, anywhere to find out who's playing, when and where, find out who our artists are. We've got an artist directory. We've got itineraries on there. If you want to come spend a weekend, here's where you can eat. Here's where you can hear live music. Here's where you can go shop for records. We've got how to throw a music festival on there, or how to throw an event. We've got as many resources as possible, and that's something we're constantly building out. And one of the key things to it, though, is really the music itinerary, because at the end of the day, where do we go hear live music? And so we work with Dr. Jeremy Tubbs from Lambeth. He has this organization he started years ago called JAMS, Jackson Area Music Society. And he helps create the itinerary every week. We take his itinerary, we find a couple more resources, and we create social media graphics. We send out a newsletter every single week, just telling people what's going on in our area. And that extends a little past Jackson as well, because we, all know that anytime someone knows about live music, it's a good thing. And as many people know about an event, that's a good thing. So that's probably the biggest thing we do, is that itinerary, because that's getting people aware of what's happening. But it's just been one of the coolest things I've ever seen unfold, just because artists are feeling supported. And that's what's meant so much to me. We get so much great feedback. This feels like it's for us, or this has helped me, or, they are excited when they see photos posted on social media. So it's been twofold. One, helping inform folks, but also just seeing the benefit of the artist. And hopefully we can continue growing that and continue doing things that support our, local music scene.
Well, it's a great tool, because if you think about it, I mean, we do have tons of incredibly talented musicians, but I have noticed oftentimes musicians, they just want to play.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to do the marketing.
That's right.
They don't want to do a Facebook post, although they will if they have to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great for them, I'm sure. I'm not a musician, but I can see where I would lean heavily on this, because you just want to play for people.
That's right.
And so it's a great tool for both people who are interested in music, for the venues like us that have Rhythm on the Rails, and we want to get people here to some of our.
That's right.
Of course, we serve the Jackson community here at Discovery Park, and we want Jacksonites to come here and enjoy. I don't know, what do you call people from Jackson? Are you Jacksonites? Are you Memphians? Or people from Memphis are Memphians?
I've heard Jacksonians a few times.
Jacksonians. So. That sounds good, but that sounds like people that voted for Andrew Jackson.
That's right.
So the folks from Jackson, come here, and we depend on, trying to get the word out through that tour. I know Zach actually posts on it sometimes when we do Rhythm on the Rails. So it's really helpful. Now, the other thing I wanted to ask you about, so you and I and Jeremy, we were all at I'm looking at my notes here to make sure I say it right. A music ecosystem study focus group at the same time last week or a couple weeks ago. I can't remember. Time flies. Can you tell us what you know about that? I know absolutely nothing other than the fact that I was invited and I talked, which was not difficult for me. But tell us a little bit about what you know about that study that's going on, because it's a fascinating thing that Jimmy Wheeler is doing.
Right. So the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, they saw a need to learn more about music in communities outside of Nashville, obviously. And so they are studying each part of Tennessee through focus groups, through a music census, a survey that people are doing. And they're working with a company called Sound Diplomacy, which is an international company known for their work in music and how it impacts cities. So they're taking all this information, and the study will hopefully give some really helpful tactics that these communities can use to elevate their music scene, elevate artists, and just help grow and support what's going on. And so they recognize that each area is different. You can't do one size fits all. What's happening in our area is different than what's happening in the Chattanooga area. And so it's really nice that the state has recognized that we want to put dollars into these other communities. So ultimately, the idea is to help us just take a few more steps forward and, in our communities.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see what the study says. Robert Kirkland, who founded Discovery Park, loved live music. He loved
Yes.
entertainment. He loved having people here at he loved having people at his houses, at his here at Discovery Park. And so, he really loved live entertainment. And so he would
Mhm.
really be enthusiastic about what they're doing to try to grow that, especially in the rural
Yes,
communities, because
that's right.
in Nashville, obviously you can always find somebody playing somewhere.
Absolutely.
So I think it's really a great thing. It'll be fascinating to find out what they discover, and
Yeah.
what tactics they put into place after they go through the study.
I agree because there's so many challenges, and some challenges are just challenges, whether it's venues are not having enough places to play or education on fair pay to artists and musicians, and then not even just education, but just resources to do it. So I'll be really interested to see how they address some of those things that everybody experiences, and then just find out what's unique to our areas and what we can do. But yeah, it's going to be really nice to see.
Well, I've been thinking, so we book, I don't know, with Rhythm on the Rails, with
Mhm.
our awards shows, our Davy Crockett Homestead and Heritage Festival. I mean, we probably book Discovery Park maybe 30 actual
Oh, wow.
performances a year. And
Nice.
so I thought, we have our groups, people that we like that we typically, but then like the other gentleman that was there at the focus group who was talking about his venue.
Mhm.
And I thought, he's probably booking his own people if there was a way for all of us that book talent,
Mhm.
to at least once a year get together and exchange ideas so anyway, I thought that was something that we might think about doing eventually,
Yeah.
because it is you want to find the best talent,
Mhm.
for your audiences, but you
Right.
also want to provide a resource for people to get on stage and just play. So,
That's right.
I think that's important. Well, you're doing some really cool stuff. Is there anything else you're doing in Jackson there in your spare time, if you have any at all, or is this keeping you completely busy? What does
Uh,
Stephanie do for fun?
oh, well, work is really fun for me. So,
Me too. I'm the same
so
way. That's how I would answer.
yeah, it for sure. So I also started a music festival 3 years ago with two ladies, Vintage Makers Art and Music Festival, where we have people that have either handmade art or vintage goods that they sell under the farmers market shed. And then we also have live music on stage as well at the amphitheater. So that's something that comes up. And then we also, this is part of work, but there's also a really exciting event that we'll be launching in April of next year. It is the Blue Suede Rockabilly Weekend, and it is something we're collaborating with Visit Jackson on. And what that's going to be is well, it's going to be a celebration of the 70th year of Blue Suede Shoes, and we're going to have a lot of stuff for those that love rockabilly. And we're hoping to attract people from all over the nation to come in and celebrate Carl Perkins, have fun, listen to live music. There will be a car show there. We will have vendors there. So that's something that I'm working on for next year that I'm really excited about. So,
Carl Perkins' boyhood home
mhm.
is out. Where is that? It's past real
Tiptonville. Yeah.
Tiptonville.
Mhm.
Yes. And there's a really good original Dairy Queen, like
Yeah,
right across the street.
there is.
I don't know how many people know that or visit.
Mhm.
It's one of those kind of, it's not open or anything. It's there.
It's there.
Yeah, I've been there and taken pictures in front of it just because it is a piece of history.
Yes.
um, Tiptonville should really embrace that and really make it. And that original Dairy Queen has those kind of ice cream cones that you dip in chocolate, and they're like the original kind. So,
Yes, the
um,
OGs. Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I'm working on it also in my spare time, working on a documentary about Carl Perkins because there's not one in existence that's new and done well. And so we went to that home not too long ago, and they told me they're working on a grant that will hopefully come through and they'll be able to restore it. But I will not name names, but the person I was with did go inside the home, and I don't think you're supposed to. And let me tell you, it needs it needs a little bit of love. It's
Yeah.
such a cool thing to have, but it's unfortunately just been out in the elements and things like that. And so hopefully they're going to get that grant and be able to elevate that a little bit because it's pretty special to be
Yeah, well,
there.
Northwest Tennessee has all these kind of weird, off the, beaten path kind of
Yeah.
experiences that, you almost have to be a local to know.
Right.
There's the place where Patsy Cline's airplane crashed, and,
Mhm.
all these different, there's the whole Walking Tall,
Yes.
trail, and Buford Pusser and all that. So,
Yeah.
there's just a lot of interesting things out and about in Northwest Tennessee. Well, you have been so kind to take a little bit of your time and talk to us today about all the cool things you're doing. You're very much an inspiration to people uh, anyone who sees a problem and thinks somebody ought to fill in the blank, like you do that and you just do something about it. So, thank you for taking the lead on so many really important things.
Well, thank you, Scott. I really appreciate being here, and thanks for all that you've done for Discovery Park. It's so special to have that in my hometown, and it's just changed so much there. And so I can't wait to go back and visit again soon.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you to all you listeners who've joined us today at Discovery Park of America. Shout out to our friends over at Main Street Union City for sponsoring today's episode. Our mission here is to inspire children and adults to see beyond. To plan an experience here for you and your family, visit discoveryparkofamerica.com.